Welcome to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. आप सब ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ, ਆਦਾਬ and shalom. And actually yesterday was the first day of Passover. To my Jewish friends and their families, a happy Passover. This is a very auspicious week for the Jewish community. And we should not forget that we just had our own Vaisakhi. And there is one thing which, of course, there are other people within South Asia who celebrate Vaisakhi. Or Vaisakhi, those people, they celebrate Vaisakhi. For them, it is occasion of harvest and the after the months of their hard labor, they have this crops coming home, money coming home, buying the stuff, enjoying and everything. That's for everybody. But for the Sikhs, it has another meaning also with it, which is linked with it. And that is, on that day, Guru Gobind Singh Ji baptized the Sikh community as a nation. People get baptized individually in every other religion. Yes, these days in Sikh community also you get baptized, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਧਾਰੀ ਕਹਿ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਵੀ ਜੀ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਣਾ ਹੈ, ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤਧਾਰੀ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ. They get individually. But Guru Gobind Singh Ji, when he started, actually he put up the finishing touch to ਜੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਦੇਵ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਪ੍ਰਥਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਕੁਐਲਿਟੀ, ਫਰੀਡਮ and mobility ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, those were the things ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ he talked about ਕਿਰਤ ਕਰਨੀ, ਨਾਮ ਜਪਣਾ, ਵੰਡ ਛਕਣਾ, to work, to pray and share. So Guru Gobind Singh Ji put up the final touches to that after creation of Khalsa by first baptizing the five beloved, Panj Pyare, or us to baad then he himself getting baptized by them. This is a unique only to Sikhism. So when some of the people within a Sikh community also they talk about certain things, they should realize that our history is written, it is current, we know that, and every other history is, they are still trying to dig out whether the things did happen or did not happen. So congratulations to everybody who celebrates Vaisakhi. Special congratulations to the Sikh community and to my Jewish friends. Happy Passover. And also, I'm pretty sure that you have been watching this, you have been listening to this, that in New York we have a Sikh Day Parade coming up this Saturday. And I'm really honored that I was one of the first person who was involved in getting the sanctions for the first parade, working with the committee and the police department and the mayor's office to get the first parade kicked off, literally, in Manhattan. And at that time, it used to be on Broadway from 40th Street all the way down to 17th Street, 14th Street, Union Square. Later on, there were some changes to it. It got moved to 23rd Street because 14th Street Union Square was not available anymore because of the farmers market. And then it was moved over from Broadway to Madison because the New York City's, from security point of view, from traffic's mobility point of view, and all those permutation combination, this is what they decided, that they were like that, okay, they are moving everything on Madison Avenue. So most of the parades now, they are on Madison Avenue, except very few are on Fifth Avenue, which is a coveted avenue for anybody to hold a parade if they can. And city doesn't give permission for that to anybody. We even at one point tried to go on 6th Avenue instead of going down south, going north and finishing up at Central Park. But Central Park is another conservative group over there who conserves the Central Park. They said no. they refused, and there is nothing wrong in still trying, but yes, there is very slim chance that it may ever happen. And excuse my throat because I'm recovering from this sickness, so there is a slight voice change and everything. So now coming to first, let us talk about little bit about what is happening in the New York City universe right now. Columbia University, the cops were called in to remove the students. Then it happened in Yale universities. It is happening in other universities also, and it did happen at NYU also. So the faculty got arrested, which means professors, along with the students, for protesting. So basically what is happening here is that this is something which is, how should I put it down? Sometimes I have to struggle to find appropriate word for this thing, because when we look at it, I actually was just talking earlier also. I still remember when Rudy Giuliani was the mayor of New York City, and at United Nations, Mohammad Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran, came to visit for United Nations meeting. Columbia University invited him to speak at the university, and he agreed. The mayor, Rudy Giuliani, of the time, he found out about it, and he literally wrote to the university's president that he should not be allowed to speak, and that kind of platform should not be given to a person like him who does not believe in freedom of some people and who does not recognize Israel as a nation. So the president of Columbia University, which is actually located within New York City, okay, wrote to the mayor that thanks but no thanks. We don't advise you how you run your city, so please do not advise us how to run the university. And today, when we see this thing, I saw that, and I'm seeing what is happening, a place which is actually supposed to be free to discuss your ideas without any hesitation, without any reservation, freedom of thought, freedom of going out and talking and discussing, irrespective of how reprehensible your thoughts are, but your thoughts are your thoughts, and putting it out there, discussing and looking at it, if it make any sense, and if it doesn't, let somebody else add to it. Now that same freedom of speech is being contained, being constrained for political reasons, for financial reasons, and that is a very sad trend which is setting up right now, right here in universities. Because look at University of South California, valedictorian speech, because the person who was valedictorian, she was a woman, a Muslim, and she had her thoughts about what is happening in Gaza, between Israel and Gaza, which I will discuss right after the break. They didn't like it, and they said that because there were comments, there was a resistance, they cancelled her speech. Now, after they cancelled her speech, they even committed a bigger mistake, one mistake after another. They cancelled everybody who was invited to come and speak over there at the university. And that is something which actually is worse than anything which I can think of. We here in the United States, one way or the other, somehow our freedom is at attack, and it is at being attacked by none other than a presidential candidate directly and indirectly, and the other people are taking actions reacting to that, and reactions are even worse than the actions. So I don't know who to blame, but both sides are wrong. Doesn't matter which way you look at it. Let's take a break. After the break, I will be right back. My Jewish friends, for Passover, congratulations to them. So we were talking about what is happening in the universities, and the reason, of course, is Hamas and Israel war. For the people who are not aware or who may be joining now, for them it may be something new to learn, and if they see something which I'm stating here and they see that okay, there should be some addition to it or may not be correct to the extent which they think, I may be wrong, please let me know. Send me an email at hstoor@gmail.com, hstoor@gmail.com. It's right on the screen. Send me an email and I will be more than happy to do that. Let's begin first with October 7, what happened. The attack by Hamas has to be condemned. There are no ifs and buts about that. Okay. Why it happened, that is debatable. Why they chose that way, that is debatable. Depending on which side you are sitting on with, they will just try to justify their own way. But some of the facts we should not forget, that we are looking at that part of the world from where three major religions took place in the world: Judaism, the Jewish, Christianity, and Muslim. They all grew up from Jerusalem. And it is like, and if you try to look at their holy books, you will find the commonalities of their, people they worship, excuse me, or they cherish, or they respect within the faiths. You will see that there are common people in there. But that should not be the reason that we should be in a situation where we are today. I always say, and I'm going to repeat myself, none of the religion teaches violence, but the maximum violence always takes place in the name of religion. And this is what is happening. So, going slightly more back on that thing, there was an election in Gaza when George W. Bush was the president, and he was told that this election, Hamas is going to win the election, because you had Palestinian Authority and you had Hamas. And he still let the election go ahead. Now we're talking about here a democratic process. Doesn't matter how flawed it is, but if we're talking about democracy and democratic process, then that's what we're talking about. So he did let it happen. Hamas won the election in Gaza Strip, and they slowly but surely pushed out Palestinian Authority, which actually runs the West Bank. And Israel in the meantime is not just controlling Gaza and West Bank, but also increasing the occupation and moving further and further, taking away, chipping away at the territory of West Bank, which theoretically is being discussed as two-nation theory, because the current Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, does not believe in two-nation theory. He doesn't want it. Number two, he is the person who will end up behind the bars if he is not a Prime Minister. So that is for him. Now, after Hamas did what they did, what Israeli forces are doing is even worse than that. Remember, we were just talking about in the first quarter about, one bad thing and other bad thing doesn't make one positive thing, one negative, it doesn't work like that. Somebody somewhere has to stop. And right now, it doesn't look like that anybody is thinking to stop anything because of the elections in the United States, election in India, elections in Russia just happened. China is down the road for election, and we're talking about the major players of the world right now. India is becoming one of them. It's not there yet, but it will be there. No doubt about it, whether we like it or we don't like it. So, with all that happening, it's not easy to consolidate and bring sense to the people. When you are thinking in anger or with vindictive mind, then you cannot come to the right conclusions and right decisions, and that is the issue here. And that is what the thing is. So that's why what is happening in America also politically is very interesting. Oh yeah, by the way, England also have elections coming up. I think they are happening in 2025 unless they decide to hold it before that. So with all these things happening and going on, this is where we stand right now. And the protests at Columbia University, NYU, Yale, Harvard, the other universities, that polarization is based on those kind of mindset that the people are actually looking at through that prism. They are not looking at it from the more sensible way. They are looking at it as a vindictive way, how we can score against these people, how we can get even with them. So that is where the crux of the issue comes in. And on top of that, then we have the current presidential election going on in the United States, even though it never stopped actually after 2020. Literally in the United States with the media now, the way the media covers, whether it's MSNBC, CNN, Fox, doesn't matter which channel you watch. You will watch constantly the presidential election, the presidential election, the presidential election. And I can bet that as soon as the November 5th election happens, they will start talking about 2028 election. And before you would really know about it, 24-hour coverage will start about that. So what is happening in the background in the meantime? What is happening in Somalia? People are all dying from starvation. What is happening in Yemen? Nobody is talking about it. What is happening in Saudi Arabia? Nobody is talking about it. There is a very little conversation of what is going on in Indian election. Why? Because right now there are two major forces which are playing. Number one, the companies, United States and the major corporation, they want to move out of China because of their Chinese policies and what is happening. And they want to move to India. They are moving to Vietnam and Thailand, but they also want to move to India. So because of that, there is there are conversations, there are discussions, but there is nothing which I would say is being said with enough force to condemn some of the actions, which definitely I will talk after the break. And Pakistan also has elections, just had elections, and I won't be surprised if Pakistan goes into another election in the next 2 years or so, maybe even less than that. So democratic process has its benefit, but it also has its drawbacks. This is the biggest drawback of the democratic elections, that the calculations are based on these assumptions. Those assumptions may not be correct, but they are still assumptions. They are on the table, and you have to take them into consideration because there are people who actually will follow that. Look at just what happened. This guy came all the way from Florida and he doused himself in petrol and put himself on fire and he died. For Trump. And do you really believe that Trump really cares about it? I don't. I really don't. If you really look at the statement so far from him, I haven't heard a single word which he has said about him, or he felt any remorse for his death, or any word to his family, except some people, who feel bad about it, including me, that, come on, your life is worth much more than that. You may have your opinion, you may have your differences, but for God's sake, don't take your life. You're not supposed to take your life on your own. Doesn't matter what is at the stake. So those are the factors, and then on top of that, we should not forget that Ukraine war is still going on. It's not over yet. And what appeared when the war started, and what appeared 2 months after the war, what appeared a year after the war, and what appears now are totally different scenarios. And yes, I did come across an article, I didn't get the chance to read it yet. Maybe in the next show I will talk about it, that there was almost a compromise between Ukraine and Russia, which people put together, but it never got materialized. Maybe I will talk about it in the next show. But right now, let's take a break. After the break, I will be right back. Welcome back to Mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. Once again, I have to talk about Indian election. We will be talking about it till it's over, and the counting will be on June 4th. Phase 1 already took place. The other phases are going to take place as we move along. And phase 7 is going to be, I think, 2nd of June or 3rd of June, and the results will be declared for either 4th or 5th of June. We can all look at that. But, there are a few things which I have to talk, and I think I should be talking about it. What I see and what I feel, I'm putting down here. When you are running to get elected, there should be some kind of restraint about what you say and how you say it. On your own, you need to understand that. Winning election is important. Yes, if you don't win the election, you cannot be in power. But at the same time, if you are literally dividing the country based on religion and caste and win it, then, you will be ruling on a crumbling house. And that crumbling house sooner or later will disintegrate into something which nobody will be able to recognize. There is something which I will say. When you walk into a flower shop, what do you see? You look at all these different colored flowers, different style. You look at the roses, you look at the lilies, you have all this in different colors. You can buy a bouquet with just one color, red, white, pink, doesn't matter which color. Or you can buy a bouquet with multiple color with different flowers, and which will look better. The one with the multiple colors, multiple style of flowers, that bouquet definitely will look better than a bouquet with only one color. And I'm giving this example because what I feel here is that there is a tendency going on right now in India to make it a pure, either you are a Hindu or you're not welcome. And let me tell you something, when people don't remember it, they just need to dig into the history and they will find out. The very first Republic Day parade, which Prime Minister Modi took the salute from Red Fort, the Sikh regiment was not in that, was not part of that Republic Day parade. Look at the history. Our people, we just don't look at it from that perspective, that angle. Now, and after that, there was a Muslim gentleman who was eligible to be the chief of the army staff, even though his tenure would have been only for, I think, 3 or 4 months. But that was the way it was supposed to be. But the Prime Minister Modi's government, the BJP, decided not to make him the chief of the army staff. They superseded him and he resigned and he took the retirement. Instead of bringing different communities together, dividing the communities and then ruling them, that is something which bothers me. Then also, directly or indirectly, there is a gag order. What you can say and what you cannot say. If something which you say is not liked by the people in power, immediately an FIR will be lodged against you and you will be arrested, depending on, if you belong to the ruling party, nothing will happen. But if you belong to the opposition, yep, definitely you will be behind the bars. Doesn't matter what. So I can literally go on and on and on, but it is not going to help. Neither you, neither me. It's not going to help either one of us. But I'm just giving you a few examples that voice should not be, pushed down. It should not be, your thoughts should not be throttled down. And I was just talking about Rudy Giuliani and Columbia University, and now we see these protesters being moved by the police at the asking of the administration of the universities. And we are talking about this Columbia University, an esteemed college. We are talking about NYU, esteemed college, which means what? That if universities are the places where you cannot share your thoughts, you cannot show what you feel, then where would you go and do it? So same way, when Arundhati Roy is being arrested for something which he talked about in 2010, why? Because a signal is being sent to the other speakers and the writers that where is the limit. And once you start putting up the limit, trust me, innovations stop. Innovation actually happens when you go beyond what is in front of you. You experiment with something beyond what is in front of you. And that's how the things get invented, not by, controlling your thoughts or managing your thoughts, and that is what is happening. And we don't need to go farther. Sitharaman, who is the finance minister in the current government, refused to run for Lok Sabha because she said she does not have that kind of money. And her husband actually wrote a book which literally is talking about the policy, against the policies of the current administration in India. So when you start looking at that, on the one side we are saying that we want India to be the world superpower, and on the other hand, you even cannot talk freely, then are we really sure what we are talking about? Do we really know where we will be? While we are going into the last segment of the show, I'm going to touch few things on, democratic process, the things happening here in the United States, and I promise you that I will do one show dedicated to how the presidents get elected in this country, even though the elections take place, but there is an electoral college. That's why, when it happens, a lot of people, they are like, well, actually Democrats got more votes, but the Democratic president did not get the presidency. It is the Republican, or vice versa. And believe it or not, for last more than 20 years, Democrats have been getting more votes than the Republicans, but we do have Republican presidents also. George W. Bush did not get the majority votes. Donald Trump did not get the majority votes. Okay, so let us keep our powder dry till we talk about that. Okay, right now, we are in the midst of presidential election in the United States. A lot of issues are there. Depending on who you talk, what kind of your setup, what kind it is, what is not. But there is one thing which actually I see missing, especially from Republican side, that they are not talking about the issues about how they will govern. The Ukraine aid package just passed. Okay. Look at how long it took Mike Johnson to arrive to that point where he said that, okay, I'm going to do it. It took him almost 6 months, close to that. And there is already talk about, by Taylor Greene, MTG, that she will, bring to the floor to remove him from speakership. And if that happens, if it comes to the floor, then we will have another non-functioning, even still right now, it is not really functioning the way it should be, the Congress, but then forget it. At the same time, there's one more factor, and that is Republicans tried to impeach President Joe Biden. Congressman Comer brought in the witnesses to put up the stuff out there, which he can use as a leverage to impeach President Joe Biden. He couldn't. The only reason they are continuing this is just because, it's sort of like tit for tat, and I'm pretty sure somewhere on the back it is the call from the former president who refuses that he ever lost and is running again to win what he claims he never lost. That, do it. I got impeached. He got to get impeached. I got impeached. He got to get impeached. Because that's the mindset for the former President Donald Trump. The moral character of the politicians has gone so low. I just could not believe. I always listen to all these people. Oh, I don't want to get into this dirty politics. I don't want to get into this dirty politics. I don't want to get into this dirty politics. Yeah, politics is dirty, but who made it dirty? You people who are well educated or who have balanced mind, and you stay out of race. You stop that I will not participate, and that is what happens. And let me give you an example again, which I always use and I will be using. Out of 100 voters, 65 to 70% come out to vote. Let us go with 70% to make the calculations a bit simple to understand. Out of that 70%, the midpoint is 35%. So anybody who gets 35 plus 1 wins. So let us go with 36%, even 40%. So 70% already, 30% are not participating, okay? And you get 40% out of that 70%, which means what? That 30% plus those 30% who voted, but that 30% fell lower than the threshold. So 60% people have no opinion, no say in what kind of government they are participating in. So if it is 35 plus 1, then 65% people. And if you participate only like 60%, then out of 60%, you are looking at what? 31%, then 70%, 29% plus 40, 69% people. So when we look at this from this perspective, we really need to sit back and think about it. We want a better future for our kids. How we can have a better future for our kids if we don't participate properly? How we can have a better future for our kids if we put restrictions on what they can read, what they can talk about? They cannot talk about our history. They cannot talk about certain aspects of our history. You take your kids to the temples, mandirs, gurdwaras, to the churches, to the synagogues, and you tell them you cannot talk about, what our ancestors did to the other communities. But yes, you can pray to the God. The God actually you are praying to tells you that you should be speaking the truth, and that truth cannot be spoken if history cannot be discussed. The books are being banned. The people are trying to make money by lying. The social media is in such a free fall. Anybody can put anything against anybody and nobody is held liable. Except if you live in India, then yes, over there it is like, okay, you cannot say this thing against the current government. If you do that, you will end up behind the bars. And before I go, I will give you a perfect example. BBC News, when they put out a documentary on what happened in Gujarat, look at what happened. Their offices were raided, they were shut down and everything happened. They could not find anything. It was income tax people. Did anybody hear after that? No. Why? Because it did not serve the purpose of the government. That's why the people who are quiet and who are not speaking, they need to get up and talk and share their ideas. Talk to each other, don't talk at each other. With that note, good night and good luck.